Welcome in, everybody. This is your self-care staffing for Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. I'm Lou Pascal. I'm the school social worker in the Manchester City Schools in Manchester, Tennessee. I said this week that we were going to talk about maybe some more emotional topics, some more topics that deal with feelings. So today I want to talk about forgiveness. I want to talk about the importance of forgiveness. I want to talk about how unforgiveness can impact your self-care. And I want to talk about forgiveness as a self-care practice that you can implement in your life. I don't always look up a definition for every topic that I introduce in these videos, but forgiveness has definitely been one of those concepts that it has taken me a long time to get my mind around in terms of what it means in my life. So I did get a definition for today. Merriam-Webster Dictionary says that the definition of forgive is to cease to feel resentment against an offender. And I found an article from Johns Hopkins Medicine that had some important points about forgiveness. The first one, in fact, 62% of American adults say they need more forgiveness in their personal lives, according to a survey by the nonprofit Fetzer Institute. So 62% of American adults feel like they need more forgiveness in their personal lives. It also had some points about how the act of forgiveness can impact your physical health. Studies have found that the act of forgiveness can reap huge rewards for your health, lowering the risk of heart attack, improving cholesterol levels and sleep, and reducing pain, blood pressure, and levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. And research points to an increase in the forgiveness health connection as you age. So again, those were from an article from Johns Hopkins Medicine. I think when things occur or things are said that prompt us to feel anger, we can hold on to those for hours, days, weeks, months, sometimes years and years and years. We can hold on to a sense of anger and we can decline to forgive whatever was said or done. If you're a person who feels a lot of responsibility for the world, you may feel a sense of injustice for something that was said or done. You may feel frustration that it occurred, that it occurred in the first place. You can feel a sense of righteousness or what feels like righteousness. You can feel like you can think some things like, he can't just say whatever he wants to say and nobody challenges that. Or she can't just do whatever she wants to do and there's not any consequences. And it can feel like holding on to that anger and holding on to that unforgiveness can feel like the doing something about it. That can feel like being able to impact that situation. That could be giving someone the silent treatment, cold shoulder, doing a complete door slam and cutting someone out of your life completely. And sometimes those are things that need to occur. I'm not questioning the action or response. I'm questioning the feeling behind the response, the feeling of unforgiveness and what it can do and how it can impact your life and your physical health and your emotional health. That's what we're talking about. I do want to say that forgiving, in my mind, doesn't necessarily mean that I forget. It doesn't necessarily mean that you let a person back into your life, especially if they haven't demonstrated that they have changed their behavior. So you may forgive, you may be able to release that resentment feeling, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you continue to interact with that person. That doesn't necessarily mean that they become a part of your life again, especially if they haven't demonstrated any behavior change. You can also feel unforgiveness towards yourself. There may have been something that was said or done, may have been something you said or did, or maybe a situation that you experienced that you maybe felt like you should have seen it coming, or you maybe felt that once it was occurring, you should have been able to put a stop to it. You should have been able to impact that situation. There are definitely experiences that can prompt a feeling of unforgiveness to yourself. So there are a lot of perspectives on forgiveness. I can't tell you a step-by-step process of how to forgive someone. There are a lot of books on that. There are a lot of ideas, of models of how to go about forgiving someone or forgiving yourself. And I think that's can be very individualized in terms of whether that works for you or not. I also think that your process of forgiveness can vary. I think there are some things that might be really easy to forgive and let go. And there are other things that you may have to have a really deliberate, purposeful, intentional, step-by-step process to be able to let go of the unforgiveness. So let's do some self-care check-in questions. Is there someone you need to forgive, and if so, who? What is standing in the way of you doing that? So I always try to answer these questions that I ask you guys. So I'm going to give you an answer, and it might seem a little bit funny, a little bit silly, but I think it will be useful. So I am a person, again, I'm a school social worker, have a social work education, and I'm trying to make the world a better place. And I definitely can feel some emotions in response to what I perceive as injustice, and I can hold on to those as unforgiveness for a long time. And so sometimes there are companies that make me mad, and what I do when I'm feeling unforgiveness is I usually decide that I'm going to boycott them and impose some sort of sanction on them, on these $1 million, multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies. This one girl is going to teach them a lesson, basically, and impose some sort of consequence on these huge companies. And usually when I decide to do that, it only inconveniences me. I have to go out of my way to either not go there or to interact with them in a way that I perceive as punishing to them or teaching them a lesson. Usually only inconveniences me. So eventually, sometimes it's a short period of time, sometimes it's a longer period of time, I eventually realize that it's in my best interest to forgive and move past it. And I'm usually able to do that. And again, that's sort of a lighthearted example, but it is a real thing that happens in my life. And it is a situation where I can practice forgiveness. So let's walk through some quotes. So here's the first one. Again, this, and he's talking about unforgiveness, is to some degree a matter of emotional habit. This is the direction that your mind tends to go. And that was Richard Smoley, and he wrote a book called The Deal, A Guide to Radical and Complete Forgiveness. And so he says, again, this unforgiveness is to some degree a matter of emotional habit. This is the direction that your mind tends to go. So he's talking a little bit toward the end there about neuroplasticity, and that your mind can get into habits of unforgiveness being your default response. And so you may have to try some new patterns and retrain your brain that you don't automatically go to unforgiveness. Another quote, forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. And that was Gerald Jampolsky, and he was quoted by Oprah Winfrey in The Wisdom of Sundays, Life-Changing Insights from Super Soul Conversations. And this one is a really important quote for my life. Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. I think sometimes I hang on to unforgiveness as a way of trying to redo something that can't be redone. And so there's a measure of acceptance in that needs to occur. So I don't condone what went on. I didn't like what went on. I'm not okay with what went on, but I accept it. That is what happened, and I can't change it. And I'm not going to hold on to unforgiveness in an attempt to get a redo, basically. So forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. This next quote sort of says that in a different wording. Forgiveness is giving up the hope of a different or better yesterday. And then they go on to say, also, an unsolicited statement of forgiveness is almost always perceived as an attack. Remember, never forgive anyone directly to their face. That was John James and Russell Friedman from the Grief Recovery Handbook, the action program for moving beyond death, divorce, and other losses. And I had mentioned that book to you guys in an earlier video, the Grief Recovery Handbook. But I want to go back to their quote for just a moment. Forgiveness is giving up the hope of a different or better yesterday. Again, that's just sort of a different wording of the second quote. And then the next part is sort of a pro tip from these people who write and teach about forgiveness and conquering or moving past or integrating grief into something more livable. Also, an unsolicited statement of forgiveness is almost always perceived as an attack. Remember, never forgive anyone directly to their face. And again, one size fits all advice usually fits no one, so take what you like and leave the rest. But this is just a suggestion from them that an unsolicited statement of forgiveness is almost always perceived as an attack. So never forgive anyone directly to their face. If you've gone through a process of forgiveness about something someone said or did, then just let that remain in your own heart and mind. And maybe at some point you'll have a beautiful interaction with them and it will come up naturally and you'll have the perfect words to say and both of you will find healing. That is a wonderful hope, and I definitely wish that for you. But until that happens, their suggestion is just to keep that forgiveness in your own heart and your own mind and let that be for you. So some songs, I found several songs that are songs that I really like that I think demonstrate sort of a forgiveness story. So the first one is from 1989, 2 Dozen Roses by Shenandoah. If I could try a little harder and get a little less sleep at night, would it change your mind? 2 Dozen Roses, Shenandoah. Probably one of the greatest asking for forgiveness songs of all time. Also 1989, Cher, If I Could Turn Back Time. Cher does not need me to elaborate on that. That song definitely stands on its own. Taking it a little further back, 1977, Player, Baby Come Back. You can blame it all on me, I was wrong, is what they say in that song. And then the last one, 1990, Travis Tritt, Help Me Hold On. And he says, you were right all along. So those are all things that you might want to say if you are asking someone for forgiveness. The video that I want to leave with you today is, believe it or not, Tom and Jerry had a segment about forgiveness. Tom and Jerry, cat and mouse. So it's just called Forgiveness, Tom and Jerry. I'm going to put it on the comments and I want you to watch it. It's very short, but I want you to think about Tom's motives for getting forgiven and his methods to achieve that. So, if all hearts and minds are clear, I appreciate you as always for watching this video and spending this time with me. And I will be back tomorrow with another self-care session for you.